Good evening. I'm Kate DeWitt. I'm with the Kensington Historical Society, and we love putting on these programs. We all personally learn something, so that's exciting, and meet new people, and that's exciting. And we like to share history, and it's fun talking to Juan because he's the custodian now of the fire department's history, and so he wants to share. So here we are doing the job. We are recording, Montgomery Cable's recording, so that it'll be available to view. We'll make sure you guys have the link and you can pass it on to your people who can view it on either Montgomery Cable's website or we post it on the Historical Society website. But because we're recording, if you could silence your phones so we don't get that interference, that would be great. Probably we should go through the presentation and then questions and comments and stories from you guys would be fun to hear. So Juan and I don't know each other well except by email, so it was fun to talk to him about his history. You know, he's been with the department 31 years. Wow, right? Pretty amazing. And now he's a software guy? What's that? I don't get it, but maybe there's a bridge I don't know about. But obviously still involved with the fire department in a volunteer capacity, so that's good for all of us. What I appreciated his interest in history. He was majored in history in school, so this interest in genealogy, department history, and all that is kind of a natural progression for him. So I'm going to turn it over and let you take it away. We'll take questions later. As I said, we'll have questions coming in from the Zoom folks, so enjoy.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As many of you may know or may have heard, this is a significant year for the Kensington Volunteer Fire Department. We're celebrating our 100 years of existence as a department. And we have activities planned for later in the year. We'll provide more information about that. But actually, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm actually here to talk about what happened before that. And you may wonder why. Well, the significance of the 1925, that's when the department incorporated and chartered. And it signified that the department was a self-sustaining, independent body, which wasn't the case before that. And that's what we're going to look at, I'm going to talk about this evening. So I'm going to be speaking about how the fire department actually started and evolved prior to the incorporation of the department. So basically, I've broken it down into three periods, which was the original organization of the department in 1899, a first reorganization in 1912, a second reorganization in 1919. So when the town was first founded, it was really unprepared to handle any type of fire. It incorporated in 1894 as the mayor and council of Kensington, an interesting name. And if anyone remembers Gilligan's Island, the jingle for the theme, there's no boat, no light, no motor car. Well, the town of Kensington was kind of similar. It had no municipal water system. There was no organized fire protection. And even the legislation that had created the town did not have a provision to establish any type of fire department or have a fire marshal. So what were they able to do at that time? Well, it was really difficult. They didn't have very much. If there was a fire, they would ring the church bell. That would be used as an alarm. And the primary activity that would happen was they would try to control the fire, maybe put it out, but really what they tried to do was to save the contents of the building before they burned. So that was one of the main activities when there was a fire in the town, was trying to save what you could. There was limited availability of devices to put a fire out, and there were no fire departments nearby. In 1894, the closest one would be Washington, D.C., and we're talking about the federal city. So if you're familiar with the city and know Florida Avenue, that was kind of the boundary of the city. So all the fire departments were contained within there. There was nothing in the suburbs of the District of Columbia. So you were kind of out here in a hinterland on your own. The closest fire department to be established in D.C. was in 1897 in Brightwood. So that's like Georgia Avenue and Missouri Avenue down there. So it's still pretty far away. And as a matter of fact, most of Northwest Washington didn't have fire protection. It came from Georgetown up until like 1901 or so when they opened the Tenleytown station. So what would you have on hand to fight a fire if you were here in the town? As I said, it really wasn't very much. The bucket was probably the most obvious. In there you'll see it's a fire bucket, but probably most people would have had just regular household type buckets. They did sell what were called fire grenades. Back at that time, it was a glass ball, as you see there, and it was filled with water and a mixture of water and salt, so it would prevent it from freezing. Because if it froze and cracked, then it wasn't much use to you. Later on, those actually would go on for many, many years, and people collect them. You need to be careful with more modern ones because they contain carbon tetrachloride, which is not a fun product, but the old ones had water. And then their fire extinguishers did exist. They were quite expensive, though. You could probably, for laborer's wages, probably a week's worth of wages to purchase a fire extinguisher at that time. So there really wasn't very much at hand. So the town incorporated, and they didn't really give much thought to what to do about fires because they didn't happen very often. And the fires that did happen were typically around the railroad. There was a fire in the woods between Capitol View and Kensington, for example. The original train station burned down, and some of these fires were caused by embers from the passing trains, igniting something. So in 1898, the town reincorporated. A new law was passed by the General Assembly, and that had some significant changes, and one of which was there was the provision to provide for an efficient police force and a fire department. The town appointed a marshal who handled the police force side of things, but nothing was really done to create a fire department because, again, they felt it wasn't really that necessary. They didn't really have any issues. However, there were warning signs around the community. For example, there was a huge fire in DC on Louisiana Avenue in 1896 where 22 buildings were burned and 5 firefighters were killed. A couple years later, the town of Laurel had a significant fire which destroyed a town block, and they had no fire department, and what happened there was Baltimore City put an engine on a rail car and sent it down via rail to the town. I mean, by the time it got there, significant damage already occurred, and actually one Baltimore City firefighter was killed there. He got run over somehow by the vehicle. And then Tacoma Park had a fire in September of 1898, and they had help from DC. The Brightwood Chemical Company existed at that point, and they drove up from Brightwood to help put that fire out. There were some people in the town who knew that there was a need, that they need to be better prepared, and that was Cornelius Klum, who was the editor and manager of a newspaper that was actually published here in Kensington, the Montgomery Press, which he touted as the only Republican newspaper in Montgomery County. And he was also later, I believe, a mayor of the town. And when he reported on these fires, he would say, this is a stark reminder that we need to be prepared. Here's just one quote of his from 1898, where disastrous fires in the neighboring towns should move the residents of Kensington to organize some general plan for protection against fire in this village. Unfortunately, his warnings went unheeded, and they finally had the big one, as we call it, here in Kensington. And ironically enough, it was his newspaper building that caught fire. So on October 26, 1899, a fire started in the Montgomery Press building. The town marshal, who happened to be walking through, discovered the fire, but he had no way to extinguish it. There was no water available. So they rang the bell of St. Paul's Methodist Church to alert the residents, who started arriving. But from there, the fire spread to a larger building, which is the town hall. You may not know, but the town hall was actually a commercial structure here in Kensington that held various businesses. There was a grocery store. There was a pharmacist who had a druggist store there as well. So the townspeople, they did what they could. They helped to pull out as many of the grocer's goods and the druggist's goods from the building. The structure was also used for entertainment, and there was a piano, and the townsfolk were able to move the piano out of the building and save it from the fire. And there was also a little shack that was used as a barber shop that was abandoned, but it was sitting next to this, and they grabbed these large pipes, moved the shack on the pipes, and they rolled it away down the street to save the structure. Then there was one other nearby store. It was a millinery store owned by Mrs. Brown, and they soaked blankets in water and covered the exterior of the building so that it wouldn't catch fire. That building was owned by Brainerd H. Warner, who's a significant resident of this town, and he had the night before spoken with some residents saying, we really need to think about what we're going to do about fire, and the response was, well, we never really have any fires, so it's not really that important. So that same evening, after the big conflagration, there was a meeting held at Noyes Library. This was a meeting that was already scheduled to talk about other town needs, a water system and lighting for the town, but it made sense to take advantage of it to talk about the need to form a fire company to deal with fire. So they quickly elected somebody as chief. That was Lewis W. Maxon. So he was elected as the chief, and then two others, John Freeman and the Reverend H. Thompson from the church, were appointed to organize a fire company and also look into what type of equipment or apparatus the town should have. They provided a follow-up meeting, a report at a follow-up meeting a week afterwards, and they had, at that point, 22 men enrolled in this fire company, and they also made a lot of recommendations. They said the first priority is that the town really needs a water supply. You can't fight a fire if you don't have water to put on it. And at that point, water came from wells that were put into, that were pumped by windmills and stored in water tanks, but it wasn't, freely available to be able to use for a fire. They said that the extinguisher should be purchased and located at strategic points around the town, so if there's a fire, we would know where those extinguishers are, and they could be brought to the fire to try and put it out before it gets too far out of control. They said the town should be districted for fire reporting and fire alarm ringing, and that the fire company should be in control of the activity at the fire, but it was expected that all residents would heed the call for help and come and do, as they were commanded by those on the fire department. A month later, there had been significant progress. They had actually bought 16 fire extinguishers, and they were all located around the town. There was a small firehouse or shed for storing equipment that was behind the building that had burned down, but that was being rebuilt. They adopted a system of fire calls for the town. And then Lewis Maxon was reelected as chief, and then also several assistant chiefs were elected. And the two people who have asterisks next to the name are significant because they would become charter members later of the current fire department. And Alfred C. Warden would be our first president as well. So that's kind of the thread that binds us to this original fire department. So time goes by, and by 1902, the department has its annual meetings, and there really hadn't been any fires up to that point. And they had been seeking funds from the town council to get a portable tank and pump, and the town council actually approved the funding for that. $80, which in today's money is almost $3,000. It's not often you get to talk about people and, information is lost or it's not available. But Lewis Maxon, who was the first chief, was an interesting person. So he was the first chief of the department. He was born in California, but he grew up in Connecticut. He graduated from Yale College, now Yale University. He was an Olympic medalist in archery and won the Championship of America 5 times. When he came to Kensington, he worked for the patent office. He was a patent inspector. As part of that work, he studied and got a law degree from Columbia University, which today is George Washington University. And he would eventually be appointed principal patent examiner at the U.S. Patent Office. And he was an elder at the Warner Memorial Church here in town. He would step down as chief in 1901, but he continued for several years with the fire department after that as an officer. So at this point, we start to see the decline of the first company, the first fire company. The council had approved funding for some equipment, but there had been no activity on actually purchasing anything. There was a significant fire in 1903 at the home of the Fowle family. Two of the children who were burned would die as a result of that. Lewis Maxon, who was still with the fire department but not the chief, wrote a letter that was published in the Montgomery Press, and he had several concerns that he mentioned. For example, one was that there was a call for a ladder to use in the structure, and it had been missing because the residents would borrow the equipment for their personal use, so it wasn't where it was expected to be. The other issue is that the chief at the time, Charles Wagner, had been trying to gather the fire company to have for meetings and training and had not been successful in doing so. I think the pattern of what would happen is that since not much went on, people had other things to do in their lives, and they just didn't continue to focus and dedicate the time needed to the department to be effective. So the little picture there is from a map by the Sanborn Map Company, and Sanborn created maps that were used by the insurance industry to determine the risk in a community to set insurance rates. And they would provide information as to what safety equipment existed. So basically it says there that there's no fire engine, there's no fire department, there's nothing in the town. So by 1904, there was really no organized fire service. So what happens then is that the town government slowly starts to assume more responsibilities for dealing with fires. They purchased 12 more extinguishers to have within the town. They were at first dispersed amongst the town, but then they, for some reason, decided to collect them, and they put them in a building behind one of the town residents, Mr. Viet's home. The other interesting thing is in 1909, they appoint a fire marshal. This is the first fire marshal. His name was William F. Walker. Other attempts to try and do something, Mr. Warner again called a meeting of residents to say, hey, we do need to address the lack of fire protection here in the town, but unfortunately it doesn't seem that much came of that. In 1910, a bill was sent to the General Assembly and passed that the town wanted to construct a building that would have cost $5,000. However, and this building would have had town offices, it would have had storage for fire equipment, and purchase fire apparatus with it. The one caveat to that was that there had to be a special tax levied on all property in the town to pay for the interest and the sinking fund. And that had to be approved by 2/3 of resident property owners. This passed the General Assembly, but it doesn't look like it ever passed that threshold of 2/3 residents because the structure was never built and nothing was done. So we have another significant fire again, or several fires at this point. So in 1912, there were several fires. One was a barn owned by Mr. Rainey that was destroyed in August. There was a large barn behind Hopkins Store, which is over where the M&T drive-through is, was struck by lightning and destroyed in August. And then the home of Dr. Edwin R. Hodge was completely destroyed in October. So the community got together and they formed what was called the Kensington Fire Company, or excuse me, the Kensington Fire Association. This was not a firefighting group. What this was concerned citizens who had started a subscription fund to seek donations to be able to purchase equipment, to then have something for a fire company that would be organized. So the town subscribes a few $1,000s to the purchase of a chemical engine from the Kanawha Chemical Engine Company in West Virginia. This would have been a hand-drawn chemical engine. And they also approved the purchase of a portable metal house to house the engine. And Mr. Arthur Williams, a town resident, offered a lot at the corner of Connecticut, which is today Armory, and Howard Avenues for that engine house. So it was left to the fire marshal, Mr. Walker, to organize a fire company. And he got 20 men to enroll in the company. The town also ordered a cart, hoses, axes, equipment that arrived in January of 1913. And then the chemical engine arrived in February 1913, and they built the quarters for it, and it was housed in May. This is not a photo of Kensington, but I just wanted to show you a chemical engine and how it would have been used, and why in the newspaper they said that every swift-footed citizen is expected to hurry to the firehouse and help haul the apparatus, because it was quite heavy. Fire Marshal Walker also issued regulations for the town. So they divided the town into 4 fire districts, and they came up with a system of alarm signals for use with the bell at the church. So basically the way it worked was that if there was a fire, somebody had to go to the church and access the bell, and then they would tap out 5 taps on the bell, pause, and then the number of the district. So if it's District 3, you would tap out then three rings. If it was District 4, 4 rings. Then you would pause and you would repeat that for two more cycles. And they asked that the residents please not ring the bell wildly to follow the system of alarm. So hopefully you knew what district you were in, and would know that to run up to the church and ring the bell. Now they started to incorporate modern technology with the telephone. So if there was a fire, you could call the operator and let her know, hey, there's a fire. You'd have to let her know what district was in, and then the operator would call somebody who lived near the church to run over to go and ring the bell. They also said residents need to stay clear of the fire until requested to assist, but they did want them to at least be nearby. And he named his officers, William Walker, he was the fire marshal, and the chief, and then his assistant and deputies. Cassius Krause, who you see an asterisk, was also a charter member of the current Kensington Fire Department that incorporated in 1925. A little later, the town purchased a siren for use as a fire alarm instead of using the bell. And actually, the operator from CMP could trigger the alarm after receiving a phone call and set it off remotely, which I thought was pretty cool, actually. However, this department was also very short-lived. Lack of regular training and calls for service led to another decline. There were no fires in the town that required use of the chemical engine. So they had no real practice with the chemical engine. So the fire marshals, to show the town, oh yeah, we have this under control, planned a large demonstration in June of 1914. So they set a bonfire on the north side of the railroad tracks. However, by the time they actually got there with the chemical engine, the fire had just about gone out. When they got there, they were unable to work the engine and actually try and put the fire out. So it was quite embarrassing. Cornelius Klum in the Montgomery Press said the town needs a well-drilled fire company with frequent practice. And the Kensington Fire Association discussed having to meet to see if they could resolve the situation. The fire marshal did say, well, we're going to plan another demonstration, but I couldn't find any evidence that they actually did that. So some big news for the town was in 1916, the municipal water system was finally completed in town, which consisted of a 60,000 gallon water tank, and then piping through the town, and then that there were fire plugs available. So as a result of this, their tactics changed. They no longer were planning on using the chemical engine, and instead they would try and work directly from the fire plugs. So if the water tank was full, they would actually get 100 PSI at the lowest point in town, which was Prince George's Avenue, which today we know as Kensington Parkway. And the highest point in town, they could get 50 PSI. So they could hook up 1 or 2 hoses, and the fire marshal proved that, they could provide streams just from the water pressure that could reach the tallest buildings in town. And also the town ordered some new equipment that they were going to need to carry all this hose. So they purchased a hand-drawn hose reel, but limited that to 600 pounds of hose, otherwise it could get very heavy. And then they had a cart that could bring the remaining hose. However, they still didn't have really an organized fire company to use this equipment. Time goes by, and then by 1919, the town still lacked an organized fire department. There was a new mayor who had been elected earlier to fill an uncompleted, the previous mayor resigned early. And he organized a group that went through the town to see, what was the current status of the town. And they determined that the town has some good equipment, but they're badly in need of a well-organized department. So on December 12th, 1919, they met to organize a fire department. Walter B. Lewis was appointed fire marshal and organizer of the department. And I think to try and keep the interest in people to stay with the department, they decided that it's not just going to be a department, but also a type of club to promote interest in activities, to perhaps gather people together and perhaps keep some interest in participating within this new fire company. 12 men signed up that night. Some different names are Eugene J.C. Rainey, Porter McKeever, and Charles Jones. These would all be charter members of our organization, and Eugene J.C. Rainey would be our first chief when we incorporated. Space was provided for the fire department in the Kensington Municipal Building, which is the building in this photo on the left. So these are the 2 schoolhouses that used to exist in the town. The one on the right was the first schoolhouse, and the second one was the larger schoolhouse that was also not used anymore. And the town purchased the whole property for like $2,000. And the municipal building was a multi-purpose building that had different uses. For example, the National Guard now in town had space in that building. The Boys Club, there was also a movie theater on the first floor. And then in a room in the basement was the volunteer fire department, and they had a pool table and they had a card table, and they could come and play cards at night or shoot pool. Kind of say, hey guys, come on, let's hang out, let's be an organized fire service. So things initially started well, but some of the firefighters in the department started to become unhappy with the state of affairs. Some of this started when the municipal building, which is where they had their firehouse or their home, caught fire. The department was there, but the mayor refused to allow them to use the municipal water system to put the fire out because he was concerned that maybe some of the surrounding buildings may catch fire, so he wouldn't let them burn it out. So they put it out. So they got to sit there and watch it burn while they waited for Silver Spring, Rockville, and then 2 stations from DC, Tenleytown and Cleveland Park, all responded. But by the time they got there, there was really nothing to be done for the municipal building, and perhaps just to make sure that the fire didn't spread further than that. So that did not sit well with members of the fire department. They didn't understand, why the mayor would do that. And Eugene Rainey, who I said was our chief, said in a letter, we could have saved the building. Sometimes I think the town council and mayor wanted it to burn. And I think he made that statement was because it was insured for $10,000. They had paid $2,000 for it. So I think, I don't know if that's really their motivation, but they had a fair amount of insurance on the building. So in the aftermath, there were several improvements. Well, first the town purchased new hose to replace the hose that got burned in the fire. And then they started a subscription among the residents to purchase a motorized fire engine. This was probably the 3rd motorized fire piece in Montgomery County when they received it in March of 1922. It was a Ford truck with a waterless pump. The other big improvement was that the municipal water system was sold to the WSSC in October 1922. And the important thing there is that no longer did they rely on water going into the water tank to fill it and making sure we had pressure. The town was connected to the water mains. So now they would have essentially an endless supply of water to be able to put out a fire. Another significant event for the department is in January 1923, they became a charter member of the Montgomery County Association of Volunteer Firemen, which today is called the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association, along with Rockville, Tacoma Park, and Silver Spring, which is an organization that looks after the needs of fire departments in Montgomery County and tries to better the county as a whole. Further issues came up that continue to fester discontent. The firefighters were upset that they didn't, only a select few, handpicked few by the fire marshal were allowed to operate the fire engine, which they felt that they wanted more people to be able to do that. Also, they could not respond beyond the town limits without special orders from the mayor. So if there's a fire in Garrett Park, better call the mayor and find out if you can go. Or if there's a fire at Capitol View, better call the mayor, find out if we can go. Obviously, they felt that they should be able to respond and help our neighbors out. Now, I guess you can look at another side of it and say, well, the town of Kensington paid for this, our residents, it should be here, for our use. But just to try and look at the flip side of maybe why the mayor wanted to have that type of control. So there was a fire in Garrett Park that burned down in October 23, 1923, and they did have permission from the mayor to go. However, going up the hill to Garrett Park, the fire engine ran out of gas. There was a town meeting subsequent to that where the volunteers were criticized, and they felt ashamed. They felt ashamed of what had happened, and they felt ashamed because, hey, we're not the ones who are able to control, very few people are able to operate that truck, not us, and it wasn't our fault, and here you are, blaming us for what had happened. So I didn't mention, but I should say that when the town purchased the first truck, it was actually kept in quarters where the current rectory for St. Paul's is. There used to be a structure there where they stored the fire truck. But then they moved to a barn that was located behind Hopkins store over near the railroad. There was a plan that was agreed to with the town that more of the firefighters would be trained under the supervision of the fire marshal to use the engine. And also an additional truck was purchased, a motorized truck to carry equipment, hose, chemicals, hooks, and ladders. So here we have another, this is from the 1924 Sanborn map, and it talks about the fire department, which it said it has one company with a chief and 35 men. They have the fire truck with a triple combination pumper, which can pump water. And then on the right here, you can see, here's the railroad station, and this is Howard Avenue here, and here is the fire department in the structure behind Hopkins store. And this is where it would stay until it moved here to the armory many years later. The fire department, from the town's perspective, things are looking good. We have a fire company that's active and effective. Cornelius Klum seemed to think things were rosy. He wrote this little ditty here that he published in his newspaper, which I will read to you. Here comes the new fire engine, the man at the wheel with face agleam, breaking the speed law, and the shrill horn answering the scream of the siren. Too much horrified to speak, they can only shriek, shriek. Crowding the engine come the ladder truck, autos, bicycles, men, boys, and dogs, hurrying, shouting. No wonder that fire went out. It is a case of going out or being put out. In other days, when a house caught fire, there was nothing for the people to do but stand by and let it burn. That's all they do now. Stand by and watch the firefighters put out the fire. No house is likely to burn in Kensington while the local fire department maintains its efficiency. Nothing but a straw shack is apt to be consumed, provided the Kensington fire boys can turn the stream on the blaze. There can be no serious conflagration with our apparatus manned by the niftiest crew that ever pointed a nozzle. And So from the fire department's perspective, here's their situation. So I've seen this photo before labeled as 1925 because it says right here, it's very visible, but however, this photo I believe was actually taken in 1924 because above it says, watch and wait, 1925, what will it be? And I believe this photo was taken on a celebration in Kensington on National Defense Day, which was September 12th, 1924, where there were various activities with the National Guard, and there was a parade, and there was a baseball game and other things. So I think this is when this photo was taken. In the back here, this is the truck that the town purchased that has the hard hose here. And then where all the firefighters are was the second truck that was purchased. And I don't know what they meant by this sign, but there could have been a double meaning, one of which, 1925, things are going to be different. The firefighters were unhappy, and they made a decision that they were going to break away from town control. And that's eventually what they did. So I want to thank you for inviting me and letting me speak today. My next presentation in October will be what happens after this. So come back in October again and hear what happens to the rest of the story. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I'm a fairly new girl to Kensington. I've been here about 4 years. And one of the things that impressed me, and I was thinking as Juan was talking, we know our origin stories here. We know how things got started, where they came from, who did it. And, you know, kudos to you for nurturing that information for the fire department and sharing it. We really enjoyed it. So appreciate it. Before we get to questions, I'm detecting, and I'm not too bright, but I'm detecting that we've got some active or retired firemen here with us tonight. And I'd just like to go around the room, have you tell us your name, when you served, and let us know who you are.
I'm Andrew White. I am a member of Kensington for the last 45 years, and I don't ride fire trucks anymore, but at one time I did, and I also served as president of the department for many years.
Kudos to you. Thank you. And you?
My name is Sajjad Ali, the Deputy Fire Chief at Kensington. Been there 25 years now.
Wow. I don't think I've been anywhere 25 years, but, you know.
Lynn Tantardini, I'm the current president of the Kensington Volunteer Fire Department, and I've been there since 1990.
Hi, I'm John Kelly. I'm a 15-year member of Kensington Volunteer Fire Department in the administrative offices.
Cool. Thank you. I see that sign every time I come out of Pliers Mill telling me there's all kinds of volunteer opportunities. Maybe I'll get up to the office.
I'm Don, and this is my daughter. Hold the microphone close. Okay. And we've been involved in fire service for how many years? 65. 65 years in Kensington.
I think we got a winner here, I think.
And Juan Bofill is because of us.
And he was also past president of 51825 and 518, yeah, 51821 and 25 stations.
Cool, cool.
Hello, Artie Hawkins. I've been here, member for 63 years.
Yikes.
I joined when I was 12 years old.
5 maybe or something, right? Yeah.
My parents owned the property where the fire sits now, my grandparents.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So you came by those.
I grew up at Jean's Costumes.
Dan Henning, much younger than Chief Hawkins, 10-year member. I'm a lieutenant and a vice president with the department, and I currently ride the fire trucks along with Chief Ali.
Cool. And anybody in this row? Yes, yes? I think you've been outvoted.
Well, I can't get away with not talking because this is what I'm wearing.
Yeah.
But I'm all of 8 months, and I'm in the admin, and I'm very proud to be part of the organization.
Yep. Okay. We'll let it go there. You know, I live over in Farragut, and I have to say, I feel pretty good that I'm about 1 minute away from the fire department in case of emergencies, so I feel better for that. thank you to you all who are serving or have served. So we all appreciate you. We can, questions for Juan, or do you just want to banter with him and give him grief, I think, maybe? I'm going to come with the mic so we get it recorded and the people get it on Zoom, okay?
You're probably waiting for your next talk to answer this, but how was this the station, and was that garage door over there, was that where the trucks came out? Seems small.
Yeah, so when the armory was built and opened in 1928, it had been planned that the fire department would have quarters here because where they were in the barn, while it was partly heated and they had, card table and some things there, it wasn't very comfortable. So it was always planned to move here. And yes, down there is where the fire department was. Now, as you said, I'll be talking about it more. And unfortunately, it wasn't very much more comfortable there either, and they weren't happy there. But that's where the department was until they built the current station today. No, it was actually down there. Yep.
So I wasn't clear, Worthman and Rainey, were they both first chiefs of different organizations, or how did the first, you characterized them as first chiefs, and I just wasn't clear what that meant.
So Lewis Maxon was the chief of the first fire company that was established in Kensington. Eugene Rainey, who we look upon as one of our founders, was the first chief when the department incorporated in 1925. And served as chief for several years, and also as president of the department too. And he actually went on to serve as president of the Maryland State Fire Association later on. Alfred C. Worthen, he was our president. He was a member of that initial fire company. He was an assistant chief, but he would become our first president when we incorporated.
The funding for the early departments, was it through fundraising, through the community organization, or the fundraising, or was it taxpayer funded?
Most of it was fundraising. When I spoke about the Kensington Fire Association, all the money they raised was from subscriptions. Well, they would go out through the community and people would say, "Oh yeah, I will donate X number of dollars." So they would write that down. Then they would have to go actually and collect that money from them at some point. But yes, the town did provide funding later on, but early on, all of it came from the citizens donating directly.
Does the subscription guarantee or give you preferential service?
No, but it would get you would become a member of the Kensington Fire Association. So if you donated, you became a member. I don't know what privileges you got. I can't think of any, but yes. Yes, you're correct.
I know a lady named Leslie Maxim who's worked at the fire department, maybe in accounting or something. Do you know her?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if she's a descendant of the original Maxim guy.
I'm not aware of any. I'm not aware of any relationship, so I can't speak to that. Sorry.
Well, I'm hoping that you check. Okay, the Zoom folks are speaking and they're Zoom clapping or whatever it is they do when they're
Well,
happy.
I thank them very much.
I'm hoping you'll stay and have refreshments with us so you guys can all catch up with him.
Sure.
And enjoy some refreshments in the back. Who didn't love the calendar this year? Everybody loved the calendar this year, right? Two people in the back that you need to thank for that, Tyler Whitmore and Olwen Logan. And I gotta say, our sponsorship this year for the calendar was exceptional, best ever. And I think it's because our community really wanted to support you guys and celebrate your anniversary. So we had a lot of fun collaborating on that calendar, and I think it's pretty slick. And I think we have some in the back if you don't have any or you want more. Kensington Historical Society is all about collecting history and preserving history and working with the town archives to see that that history is available and shared. So we love programs like this where we get information out and we have a chance to really dive deep into the story of our town. And we want to collect more of that. And we're embarking as a historical society in a program of collecting oral histories. All of our collections would benefit from having the stories told by the people involved in organizations or particular occasions or special times in our history. So we're working to get a network of oral history facilitators out there, and happy to support Juan in helping you guys celebrate your 100-year anniversary by getting your stories while we still can. So please share with us in doing that. And we welcome you to anything the Historical Society does. We've got an upcoming program. It's going to be fun in April with a trolley. The Trolley Museum guys are going to come and tell us about the history of the trolley line and the trolley line, especially through Kensington, and how that developed and why it went away, I guess. We'll find that out too. So please come again. But we've got refreshments. Enjoy. Everybody hang around, have a good time. Thank you so much.